Well, hey everyone, it's been a hot minute since I've made a video. I was trying earlier this year to try and make a series of cooking videos. Unfortunately, I discovered that my oven is a little too close to the smoke detector, so every time I started to cook stuff, the alarm would go off and that'd wreck the recording, and that just made making cooking videos a little harder. Anyway, but having said all that, I did realize though that cooking is great. But how good is a meal unless you've got dinner talk? And so I'm going to start trying to do a series of videos where I prepare a meal, at least for the time being, while I have the kitchen that I have, because I do have a new kitchen that I'm cooking in. And just, talk. I'll show you all the grub I'm eating, and then this can just be something you're listening to while you're eating or relaxing or whatever. And so I thought, let's go ahead and give this a shot and see what happens. So, anyway, so AI. You know it, you love it, and, well, if you're a VTuber or a freelance artist, you probably think it's the spawn of Satan, which, fair enough, I can definitely understand that. Before we get any further, though, let me just show you what I'm eating tonight. I'm eating a big old bowl of rice and chicken with chicken gravy. So, if any hackles just got raised a second ago for me mentioning AI, just, remember we're eating some good food. Let me just readjust this real quick here, because I am a poor man eating a poor man's dish. So anyway, AI, like I said, I question the wisdom behind using it to generate facts and information on the internet because of how easily that can be manipulated. But having said that, art and music and literature, the cultural side of AI, and yes, there is a culture behind AI, don't fool yourselves if you think otherwise, is that the culture of AI is that, things are going to start changing quickly. I mean, anyone who has seen some of these recent music videos that have been coming out will know exactly what I'm talking about. But AI is such a contentious thing because a lot of like I said, artists and VTubers, they go out and they talk about how AI is theft, how it's stealing their artistic talents, how it's ruining culture, how it's, destroying everything. But I feel the conversation behind AI is much more nuanced than that. Because, like, for example, the idea that, AI art is theft. It's not theft, guys. And here's why. To quote Picasso, who was himself an artist, and indeed, you don't even have to be an artist to know who he was, all art is stolen art. You all learned your trade and your craft from someone. You watched someone, you incorporated what you observed from them into your mind, like an AI program does, and then you diffused it through your hand and then to the pen and whatever it is you're using, onto the tablet or the paper or whatever it is that you're doing the art for. AI just does the same thing. It goes out, it watches people, it observes how people does things, and then it diffuses the information and puts it out onto an image, which is then saved and then either enjoyed or printed or published or whatever. Now again, some may still disagree, and that's perfectly fine. That is within y'all's right to do so. But consider this. Pal World has been accused by Nintendo of stealing its ideas, of using AI to generate its critters, of, taking their art style and putting it into something else. When really all Pal World's done is just taken an idea that Nintendo has been using forever, and then they just took the next logical step with it. It's the Jurassic Park effect. They saw what other people did, and then they took it a step further. But we all get on Nintendo's case because it's like, oh, you can't copyright the idea of capturing and fighting monsters because, that's a Nintendo, that's always existed. I mean, I'd say, yeah, dogfighting's been around forever. So, Pokemon hasn't invented anything that isn't original. Nothing is new under the sun. And yet everyone gives Nintendo a hard time, probably because it's a big company and it makes a ton of money. And, it's a lot harder to feel bad for the CEO, millionaire, billionaire, whatever, when the smaller, underdog is the one that's struggling and trying to, make something of itself. But, the big bad, corporations is making it hard for them. But here's the thing: the rules for thee are the rules for me. You can't be mad at Nintendo for wanting to protect its brand, its style, its way of doing things, but then get mad when AI does the same thing to you guys. And I say this mostly to the freelance artists and VTuber crowd. Now listen, I'm not trying to start any fight. I'm not trying to accuse anyone of anything. All I'm saying is if you look at yourselves really hard for a moment, you're going to notice that a lot of what AI does is stuff that you guys have been doing to other artists for a long time, and I'll get to that later. Here's the thing. I am not coming at this subject as an artist. I'm not coming at this subject as a businessman. I'm not coming at this subject as a VTuber. Content creator, maybe, but just a dude with a camera who's eating some chicken and talking to anyone who's willing to listen. But I am the most important thing in your whole world. I am the guy that you have to convince, amongst many others, that you have something that is worth me taking my hard-earned cash and giving it to you for. And that's really the long and short of it, is that, y'all are using arguments like, oh, it's soulless, oh, it's not giving us credit, it's not giving us consent. But the bigger problem, and this is one that I don't see a lot of folks addressing, I've seen a few folks, but not many, is that, AI, let's not kid ourselves, it's the death of the freelance artist. It's the end of, Hollywood. It's the end of a lot of things. Because now you don't have to release AI, or you don't have to release, new IPs or new ideas or anything like that. Just some egghead can go out and create a generator, and then you subscribe to that generator. Generator, make me a game that's a third-person shooter with open-world elements and in-depth customization. AI generator, make me a movie with my facial scan as the main character, and let me hook up with some hot celebrity. Insert name here, whatever. It's gonna ruin a lot of stuff, but here's the thing. A lot of you guys are complaining about how it's unfair and it's theft, but y'all aren't realizing that as far as the law is concerned, most of it isn't illegal. Here's an example. On the internet some years ago, there was a phenomenon where people were, shipping Harley Quinn and Deadpool, because, it's two crazies in love, because everybody loves that. Well, obviously, DC couldn't use Deadpool for a Harley Quinn romance story, so they invented a character called Deadtool, who was basically Deadpool, but with power tools instead of guns, and he was just basically a reskinned version of Deadpool, who is himself a reskinned version of Deathstroke. I mean, people have been stealing ideas and art styles and designs from each other for years. I mean, Family Guy, that was the big argument. Oh, they stole from The Simpsons. And then, King of the Hill, that's The Simpsons in Texas. But, the idea that people can't take inspiration from me or use AI to generate stuff that's similar to what I make is laughable. You're not going to be able to convince anyone that that's a bad idea, because let's get at what's really happening here. What you're mad at is that people don't have to pay you specifically for your content. Maybe the subscription, or if you're a freelance artist for the art commissions and stuff like that. Because here's the thing, AI is cheap, AI is affordable. Folks, generally speaking, especially with everything that's been going on in the world, aren't able to afford, $500, $10,000, $1,000 commissions anymore. That's just not something that the average Joe is going to be able to pay for. But AI comes along, and the law, like I said, whatever your personal feelings are, as far as the law is concerned, using AI to make art, it's not a crime. And that's just something that a lot of y'all are going to have to get, you're going to have to come to grips with. Because, like I said with the DC example, everyone's always stealing from each other, so you can't really say that there's some new phenomena that's been going on. And even then, I wonder, and again, not accusing anyone or trying to start a fight or anything like that, but how many of y'all may have at some point, downloaded some song without paying for it? How many of y'all, got emulators? How many of y'all, dipped your finger into, the bargain bin of the 5-finger discount and, gotten something for yourself that you didn't pay the developer or the creator or the artist or the musician or whatever for their hard-earned stuff? Again, but this was a big company that made it, or maybe it wasn't a big company, but it was a smaller company that was an appendage of a bigger company. But you can make that rationale that big companies aren't going to notice. But again, the rules for me are the rules for thee. If you get mad at Nintendo because they're trying to protect their IP property, same as y'all, how are y'all any different from Nintendo then? If someone takes a character that you made and they made fan art of it, do they now owe you money because they drew one of your characters? And let's say it's not by AI. Let's just say they did it by hand. Do they now owe you 25 cents or $1 for the privilege of purchasing or for drawing your character or anything like that? No, that's not how it works. And here's the other thing, and this is probably the most uncomfortable one. Artists brought this doom upon themselves because you got guys out there who will maybe they're not artists at all, but they just said, "Hey, pay me X amount of money, and I'll make this piece of art for you." Okay, they take the money, they bounce, and then they're gone, right? Well, I hear some of y'all say then, well, you should have done a background check, you should have checked their portfolio, you should have vetted them. Guys, that's exhausting and time-consuming and annoying. And that last one is the most important part, because if it's annoying to do, you're not going to want to do it, so you don't do it. So you have to take a gamble that, the guy that's agreeing to take on a job for you is going to pay you back. I've had people take money. Now, thankfully, in every instance where I was doing it, if they didn't finish the job, I got my money back. Which, cool. But not everyone's going to be as lucky as that, and they're going to, maybe end up being scammed out of their money. And that's another reason why AI is going to start having an advantage over all of this. Because, with AI, there's no risk that someone's going to run off. The quality may not be as good, but you're at least getting something. And if it's cheap, if the quality's not as good as like a high-end human artist, well, you get what you pay for. And if you're okay with the results, then, then someone's just going to keep using that AI because with the AI, they, satisfaction is guaranteed. They're going to get what they ask for. Maybe not exactly what they asked for, but the more they use it, the better they're going to get at it, and the more they're going to be able to get the specific desired results. The AI, it's not just the AI that's going to be getting smarter. It's going to be the people using it too. And so eventually, freelance artists is going to die for that reason too, because it's, like I said, with AI, that risk of the human factor is eliminated. There's no way for someone to take your money and run. In fact, let's elevate it here. Let's say that someone does carry through with that process. Here's the thing: as a guy who's purchased art from multiple artists in the past, the process of hiring someone to do it and using AI to do it has been the exact same thing. I grab some reference images of what I want. I write the instructions of what it is that I'm wanting them to do, maybe what pose I want them to do, maybe what weapons or look or aesthetic I want them to have. And then, in the one case, I click send the money through PayPal, or I click generate with the AI. It's the same process. Only with the AI, I'm guaranteed to get the product that I paid for, which is going to be like $20 to $30 a month for the cheapo that I use. But then on top of that, the human artist is going to take a while, which brings up another problem. Sometimes, and I've had this problem happen to me with artists, they'll take on a job. 3 months later, I'll ask them, hey, have y'all managed to get anywhere with that job I hired you for? Oh, I've been feeling depressed. I've been feeling, unmotivated. I've been feeling like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, I understand that, but I hired you for a job, and you promised to do this job for me. You've taken my money. I'm willing to wait and give you the time that you need in order to be able to, finish the piece. But for crying out loud, you're trying my patience here. And that's why I started going to AI, because I'd hire people, and every so often you'd have, there was one artist in particular. She kept delivering regularly, but then she had to get out of the freelance gig because it wasn't paying enough, and so she was no longer a resource. So I was like, okay, but she was like the one artist that I can say that I could actually, rely on to do the job that I hired her for, and to get it done in a time where I'm not waiting 3 months to 5 to 6 years, because I've had that happen to me too. And with AI, yeah, like I mentioned before, the quality isn't as good, at least at first it wasn't anyway, as good as what a human artist will get you. But again, go on YouTube. You can say, oh, this is slop. This is just AI generated nonsense. Well, let me tell y'all something. One man's slop is another man's oatmeal. I mean, just because you don't like it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to add a little butter and sugar and milk to it to make it a little, just a little bit better. That's just the thing. You're having, as an artist, you're not just competing against the fact that there's a machine that can do stuff, automatically and instantly. It's the fact that it's going to slowly get better. I mean, it was bad at first. They couldn't even do hands, which, as a guy who did try to get into the art game, the fact that a supercomputer had as much trouble drawing hands as, any human artist, that really is a testament to how hard hands are. But, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. But it's getting better. It's going to keep getting better. The argument that it has no soul is also bunk, too, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If the AI stuff that people are generating is liked and appreciated by the masses, well, who's to say then that it doesn't have any beauty or worth or value or what have you? There's some good chicken. And here's a funny thing. There's always this attempt by folks to try and guilt people into stop using AI. For example, there was one VTuber I watched where she mentioned that if you couldn't be bothered to learn how to draw the image yourself, why should any of us care? Okay, fair enough. But if I hire someone else to draw a character, then that same rule would apply then, wouldn't it? Yeah, I hired a human to do it, but I didn't make the image myself. I just hired someone else to do it. Again, from a consumer's point of view, it's the same process. I show what I'm wanting, I describe what I want, and then I pay however much I need to get it done, and then it's done. What a lot of y'all need to do is you need to start trying to figure out how to navigate AI, because the thing is that people are going to use it. They are going to they're going to use it regardless of what, of what people think, regardless of consent, which, let's go ahead and cover that, consent. When I see someone drawing or doing stuff on the internet, one thing I see them do constantly is they'll go out to a website or a Pinterest or whatever, and they will find an image that they want, and then they will either use it as a reference or use it as a pose, again, like AI does. And yeah, they may leave a link to the original source of the inspiration of the image, but they don't ask for consent. They don't send an email prior and say, hey, can I do this? Now, are there artists out there who do ask for consent before doing it, especially in a live stream? I would absolutely believe so, yes, because those guys don't want to, get in trouble or raise up any ire. But a lot of them don't. A lot of them will just find something. Like, the VTuber I was mentioning earlier, well, if you don't draw it yourself. Well, she went out, found an image of this person that had, a photograph had been taken of him in this nice, cute little white dress. She drew the thing image for image, but instead of the original model, it was her character in the dress in the same pose. And I'm pretty sure she didn't ask for consent. She just went ahead and did it. Now, she might have left credit, but I don't know if she really asked for consent, and how many artists actually do that. And again, when I've hired folks for stuff, I find images that I want off of the internet to give as a reference piece. I didn't ask for that person's permission, not because I didn't want to, but because, you post something on the internet, eventually it gets copied and reposted. You don't know who the image may originally belong to. So you just have to, just be like, yeah, hey, this is what I found, but I'd kind of like to patch it all into this one singular image and call it good. Which kind of brings up a point. You know, uh, most artists, their dream is to eventually have some kind of IP or other that people are going to want to draw. That they have characters that are really popular and folks make fan art. Now, if you give a blanket permission for, I have this character, my fans have my permission to go out and draw fan art of this character. Cool. You can't be mad if the AI crowd does it too, because okay, yeah, they're not drawing it themselves. Yeah, it's a computer that's doing it, but it's still fan art, which you wouldn't get any money for anyway. You don't charge someone 25 cents for every doodle that they make of your character. I mean, the comic book industry would go super crazy rich if that were the case. And also you don't make bibliographies of everyone you ever learned from. Like, I learned shading from this person, and I learned model frame drawing from this person, and I learned how to do textures from this person, and I watched this person do this, and I got the idea for this character from that. You don't see bibliographies with those. You don't see the long list of credits that come from everything that you learned and studied and went into to make that image. You just, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but you did the same thing the AI does. You just learned a bunch of stuff, processed it in your head, and then diffused it through your artistic tool or medium or whatever to make the image. AI is just doing what y'all do, but instantly. Now, let's see here. And of course, there's another question. All right. So, okay, fine. We can't give, or we can't charge everyone for fan art that they make of our stuff. We can't, do any of this, but we still don't want people using our art styles and stuff without our permission, because we worked hard for it and we want to be compensated for the use of our skills and talents. Okay. But again, do y'all pay royalties to the folks you learn from? And furthermore, under what moral obligation are we to ensure that you are fully credited for your stuff? Or let's say under what more specifically, under what moral contract are we to hire an artist when AI answers a lot of the previous problems that I've mentioned? You could say, well, I'm a person, you're supporting me. You're going to help me make a living. Okay. But why should I? If I can get this for cheaper and I can get more for cheaper, I mean, let's face it, for $20, I can get a studio's worth of concept art and character art and all this other good stuff for $20. Whereas working with a live artist, it's going to cost me like, $10,000, $5,000, or however thousands of dollars to get this, to get the same amount of work. It's a numbers game. You're way more expensive, but AI is cheaper. Much like how a contractor may have to charge more because he's got to, pay his taxes and file fees and follow rules and regulations, versus the person that just, maybe hires, Bob off of the street who just doesn't do whatever, and he's willing to do it for less because he's, he doesn't follow any of those rules, or maybe he's not supposed to be in the country. Not to get too political, but, you see my point. And even then, for those of y'all who, because here's the other thing, and this is probably the one thing that gets me the most about the artists who poo-poo novel, or who poo-poo AI art generation. It's counterproductive snobbery. Let's say someone really likes your art and they want to support you and they want to see your brand grow. They believe that you are someone worth interested in, or they just really like your style and they have the money to do so. Let's say that they have a character that was generated through AI art. They want to, have a nice, clean, high quality picture of it. So they bring it to you and say, hey, this is an image of a character I'd like. Oh, well, this was generated by AI. That was stolen. I'm not going to draw that. Okay. So you don't want my money? You don't want the $500 I'm willing to pay? You don't want the $1,000 I'm willing to pay? Oh, but it's all about artistic integrity. Y'all, if you are a freelance artist, that means you are living off of your art. You do not have the luxury of being picky over who your customers are, especially if you want to avoid working a 9 to 5 like the rest of us. You're going to start taking on AI gigs. You're going to start taking, you're going to find people that are going to want to, use your talents to better their own AI stuff. That's just kind of inevitable. And until such a time comes where artists are required by law to print out bibliographies for everyone that they ever learned art from every time they post a picture, you can't condemn AI for doing the same thing to you that you do to other artists on the reg, even if you don't mean to, even if you don't even really think about it. That's what's happening. And so as a final thought, and then I guess I'll go ahead and proceed eating the rest of my chicken and let y'all have, something to talk about with each other over the dinner table. Here are some things to just maybe keep in mind. It may be time for y'all to just keep your art as a hobby, because the thing is, if you post your stuff online, it's going to be used for AI. You can't stop it. You can click a little waiver on a website that says, oh, you're not allowed to distribute my art for AI. That is a security blanket for the insecure. It's going to be used. Maybe not by that website, but it is going to be used by someone. And even then, who's to say that the website is actually going to honor that? They'll just probably say, oh, this is to make people feel better, and then they'll use our service. And then when it happens anyway, we can just say, oh, well, it's the internet. It's the Wild West. Anyone could have grabbed that image that you made and repurposed it into AI art. There's nothing you can do about that. Now, what you can do, and this is something that I find would probably help a lot of artists in the freelance crowd, is that, make an IP that's worth investing in. Art is great, but it's the story behind the art that's really interesting. The story behind the character. To the uninitiated, Mega Man is just a little blue dude in slightly darker blue underwear with a little laser block cannon on his arm who runs around and zaps little robots on a screen. But to those who know the full lore and history and story, they know the whole thing about Mega Man. They know why Mega Man is cool. They know why Mega Man is worth buying his games and his comics and his shows and his cards and whatever over. So if you still want to get into be in the business, you gotta make sure that your IP is worth investing in, but also not drive away your customers just because they use AI. That's gonna kill your business. Again, it's snobbery that's gonna hurt you. If someone wants you to draw an image of an AI and they're willing to pay, take it. Make that money. Give yourself that financial stability. And, goodwill will generate good business. Because, with all the AI thing that's been going on, who doesn't seem to be having this problem? The Japanese. The voice actors, the authors, the writers, the artists, everyone who works over there, they try to have good relations with their customers. They don't blame the customer when their stuff doesn't sell. They just try and work harder at making a better product, which is what y'all should do. Instead of trying to destroy AI and guilt people into not using it, just be like, yeah, whatever, use it. Use it to make fan art of my character. Use it because that's free publicity, y'all. That's people going around saying stuff. Oh, but it's still stolen. All art is stolen art, like I said before. And finally, and this is probably the most important part of all, your competitors will not share that scruple. The second someone realizes they can make frame A and frame B and have AI animate everything in between, and that saves them time, it saves them the carpal tunnel, it saves them their weekend so they can go out and do other stuff that they want to do, it saves them, hard work and labor, they use it as a supplement to the talents that they've already developed. Eventually you're going to fall behind and no one's going to care, and they'll just see you as some, weird niche elitist who thinks, oh, well, I only do everything au naturel. Okay, cool. I don't really like you as a person, and you clearly don't want my money, so I'm going to take my business, my attention, and my money, and I'm going to go somewhere else and spend it there. That is what you VTubers and freelance artists need to remember. The world is changing. You can't force it back to the way it was, okay? The cool kid table has been smashed. You now have to make quality stuff. You now have to be nicer to your customers. You now have to be less picky about your customers, and you have to stop being mad when people compare your stuff to others. You gotta knock it all off. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get better. Learn to adapt. Learn to navigate this area. Don't fight it, because you know what? You'll end up like Dutch Vanderlyn from Red Dead Redemption 2. You're gonna try and fight change, and you're gonna try and fight things going in a direction you don't want, but you can't do that. All you can do is just go with the flow and let the flow take you where it's going to take you. So anyway, I am going to have the rest of my meal now. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I'll spare y'all the usual blah, 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 post, whatever. Enjoy your meal, and I hope to see y'all again. Till then, y'all have a good one. Adios.